The one guy who can unlock people who somehow get locked in a restroom at a national park, this is ridiculous. So the arguments I think you're seeing from the left are pretty darn crazy.
Welcome back, everyone, to America's new favorite game show. Is it a humiliation kink, or is this Republican really that stupid? As always, folks, the answer could be both, so make sure you get your guesses in those comments down below, because the winner gets absolutely nothing, because this is, again, the game where democracy's on the line and somehow still the points don't matter. Today's contestant is none other than Republican representative for Ohio's 4th District, Jim Jordan. And this one is a tough one today, folks, because Jimbo here was in the lion's den of lies, Fox News, where usually even the stupidest Republican talking points look like PhD theses. But Jim's absolute meltdown today looked more like feces. Which is fitting, because he was raging about libtards getting upset over the firing of people at national parks getting locked in bathrooms. Not even kidding, and we'll get to that humiliating clip in just a second, because to set up the question of kink or stupid, we first have to take a look at where this conversation started before going completely off the rails, and literally into the toilet, which was, of course, cutting the federal government with a chainsaw.
This is the chainsaw for bureaucracy.
The New York Times reports on the House version, the budget that Speaker Johnson has negotiated for the next decade calls for around $880 billion in cuts to Medicaid. That's in an effort to counterbalance a portion of the tax cuts. That scares people when they hear that. Where do we get $880 billion out of Medicaid?
The focus has been clear. The president's been clear. Waste, fraud, and abuse we're going to look at.
Is there enough of that to cover $880 billion?
Well, we're going to look to find that. I do think we're not looking to make cuts to Medicaid, but certainly work requirements are something that I don't view as cuts. Work requirements are just common sense.
And as if lying about there not being cuts to Medicaid when you're presented with your own party's literal spending bill that cuts $880 billion from it over the next decade isn't bad enough. Jordan proceeded to absolutely shit the bed with this humiliating next clip.
Federal workers haven't been the most empathetic characters for a lot of Americans, but now they're starting to hear their stories that entire offices are wiped out, people are crying, they're completely unnerved and have no idea how their agencies are going to run.
Shannon, I grabbed this headline, National Parks in Chaos after today's Washington Post story. Here's the first paragraph. California National Park, a Trump administration fired the only locksmith on staff. Next sentence, he was fired. He was the sole employee with keys and institutional knowledge needed to rescue visitors from locked restrooms. Now, if that isn't, I mean, that's the best you can do. The real question is, how do visitors get locked in restrooms? I mean, this is how ridiculous some of this thing is. So maybe there have been some mistakes made, but I think the intensity and the focus on getting rid of the wasteful spending, the one guy who can unlock people who somehow get locked in a restroom at a national park, this is ridiculous. So the arguments I think you're seeing from the left are pretty darn crazy when you think about, oh, we're spending money for the crazy things of trans comic opera and wherever. I mean, come on.
Get your guesses in now, folks, because the next part of that clip is a dead Republican dog whistle giveaway. But first, for some quick context, if Jordan had done an inkling of research, like reading the literal next paragraph of that article, he would see that the wait to enter Arizona's Grand Canyon National Park this past weekend was twice as long as usual after the administration let go 4 employees who worked at the south entrance, where roughly 90% of the park's nearly 5 million annual visitors pass through. Or that at Gettysburg, the widespread layoffs gutted the team that managed reservations for renting historic farmhouses.
Gettysburg, wow.
Or that Donald Trump's purge of federal employees is not only upending the lives of National Park Service workers, but also threatening to harm the visitor experience at national parks across the country. With even park rangers saying it's chaos everywhere. And look, I know Republicans aren't the ones known for giving a shit about nature, but what Jordan says next, attempting to justify the layoffs writ large, may shock you.
But do you worry that people, they're with you when they hear that, but then when they start to see things like Elon Musk putting out a tweet saying everyone's getting an email and you got to respond with 5 things you got done last week, copy your manager, or we're going to count, if you don't respond, we're going to count that as a resignation. that's probably not legal in the first place. But do you
but
worry
it's pretty
about
common. I mean,
but
like,
losing the momentum?
you can name the
goodwill
5 things you did last week. I was in Israel last week. I know we met with the prime minister. We met with some of the opposition. We met with the speaker of the Knesset. We toured the kibbutzim where the terrible things happened in rows, where the Bibas kids were taken and killed. I mean, we went up to the north and saw what Hezbollah. I mean, we had all kinds of. I can name 5 things I did, not to mention other things I did relative to things back here with our responsibilities as a member of Congress. So anyone can name 5. But if you're some federal worker working remote, you should be able to name those things too. So I don't think that's a big deal. But people are saying, oh, you shouldn't do those kind of things. You can name the 5 things you were.
I can.
I'm sure.
I can, but I'm not a federal worker, and I don't know who's going to feed through all of those responses. Maybe it's the manager who's copied. I don't know, but I wonder how many people. That's probably just another round of lawsuits, because we have already got about 80 that we're tracking with regards to recent policy.
Wow, Jim, shilling for Israel while simultaneously defending cuts to our own federal workforce, while your party is trying to stop funding for Ukraine and tell them to give their sovereign nation over to their invader, is par for the course for the Republican Party. So the answer, as always, folks, yes, it is both a humiliation kink, and yes, he is that stupid. Let me know if you got it right, and if you love seeing Republicans called out for their hypocrisy and lack of morals, please drop a like on the video, consider subscribing to the Really American channel, and for Really American, I'm Kenny Hesse, and I'll see you guys in the next one.